She shamelessly said my husband was hers. She spread it around the entire neighborhood, as if I were just an extra in my own life, until someone pressed record at just the right moment. And what everyone heard on that audio changed everything. I never imagined something like this could happen to me, much less in the very building where I've lived for years, where I know every face, where I exchange good mornings in the elevator and smiles at the door. I always thought this kind of thing only happened in soap operas, until the neighbor from 503 showed up. Her name is Priscilla, a beautiful woman, the kind who knows she attracts attention. She always wore tight clothes, strong perfume, and those heels that echoed through the hallways like an announcement of her presence. When she moved in, she was friendly at first. She greeted people, made small talk. But over time, I realized her friendliness wasn't for everyone. It was selective and very targeted. More specifically, it was directed at my husband. It started with small things, a good morning with more smiles than necessary, a longer hi, a comment like, "How lucky is your wife, huh?" When he walked by in a dress shirt, all of this in front of me, with that smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. But I tried to ignore it. We always try. We think it's just us exaggerating, that it's silly jealousy, until we can't pretend anymore. One day, I went down to pick up a package and found her at the door. She looked at me and said, as naturally as possible, "Your husband is a wonderful man. It's a shame he's not with the person he truly deserves." I froze. She said it in a sweet voice, as if commenting on the weather. The doorman, who had his head down, pretended not to hear, but the silence hung heavy in the air. I looked at her and said, "Sorry, what's up?" She smiled and replied, "Nothing, forget it, just thinking out loud." And then I understood. It wasn't an exaggeration. It wasn't paranoia. She wanted to provoke me. She wanted to destabilize me. What followed was even more absurd. Priscilla started telling other residents that my husband was with her. It was that simple. She claimed he no longer loved me, that the marriage was a sham. She even said he was just waiting for the right moment to leave me. These things began to circulate around the building. I noticed the different looks from my neighbors, the whispers, the change in people's behavior. A resident of 302, who had always been my friend, started avoiding me. Another, from 207, took me aside to ask if everything was okay between us. With that I know, but I want to see if you confess. Look. And the worst part was, my husband had no idea what was going on. He left for work normally, greeted everyone politely, and didn't understand why some neighbors were acting strangely towards him. I, on the other hand, felt the ground slowly sinking, because as much as I trusted him, the fact that another woman was saying he was hers, that I was the intruder, was destroying me inside. I started observing. I paid attention to the times, the conversations, the gestures, and with each passing day Priscilla became bolder. One night, I ran into her in the garage. She was standing next to her car, waiting for me. It seemed when I passed, she smiled and said, "You know that sooner or later, he'll open his eyes, right? He's just with you." Out of habit, this time, I didn't shut up. "Are you listening to yourself? That's sick. You made up a story in your head and want the whole building to believe it." She looked me up and down, laughed, and said, "No need to make it up. He just hasn't had the courage to tell you yet." I left there trembling. I didn't know what to think anymore. My husband has always been an honest, loyal, and affectionate man. I never had any real reason to doubt him. But that woman was so certain of what she said, so confident, that she stirred my emotions. It was as if she were pushing me into a dark place where everything I'd felt before began to blur together. And the neighborhood, loving it, because every building has its share of gossip mongers, and when someone dares to say something so scandalous, no one cares if it's true. They just want to repeat it, spread it, judge it. That's when everything started to spiral out of control. Priscilla started referring to my husband as my love in messages in the condominium group, veiled but provocative. Things like, "I saw the handsome guy again in the elevator. What a lovely neighbor." Or, "Some married people forget their rings at home, right, honey?" She knew what she was doing. And she did it because she felt safe. After all, until then, no one had any proof of anything. Neither did I, just loose talk. Until someone decided it was time to end the show. But that part, the part where the truth explodes and the neighborhood hears what they needed to hear, I'll tell you in the next chapter, because what was to come, no one, not even her, expected. After the blatant provocations from my neighbor at 503, my world began to silently crumble. It wasn't a real betrayal, but what she was doing was worse than any physical blow. She invaded my space, distorted my reality, and cast doubt in the eyes of everyone around me. It was as if she were trying to erase me from history, as if I were a nuisance. And she was the true owner of what was mine. At home, I tried to pretend everything was normal. I put dinner on the table, talked about work, watched a movie with my husband, but something inside me was broken. I could no longer relax. Her words hammered inside my head. The lies took shape, as if written on the walls of the apartment. Cruelest thing was that my husband truly knew nothing. There was no involvement, no exchange. He was polite to her as he was to any neighbor, perhaps even more distant, because he had already realized she was untrustworthy. And yet, I felt insecure, not for lack of love, but because she had cast a lens of distrust on everything I saw. The neighborhood then became a stage for judgment. No one said anything directly, but behavior changed. Neighbors stopped greeting me like they used to. The mothers in the block's mothers group started excluding me from invitations. The building's WhatsApp group was full of passive-aggressive messages. Some even mentioned me indirectly, like, "It's sad to see families being broken up," and the person pretending not to know. Or worse, there are people who pretend to be married, but their husband has already chosen another apartment. It was as if Priscilla's lie had become the truth for many people, because that's what happens with lies told with conviction. They become seen as legitimate versions of reality. And the most painful thing was when I noticed that even the doorman, who had always treated me with affection and respect, started looking at me with that look of pity, of judgment. One day, I went to pick up a package, and he said, in a low voice, "Stay strong, ma'am. You're a very strong woman. Don't be shaken." Those words were like a punch. I wanted to scream, "My husband isn't with her." I wanted to show proof, defend my home, my truth. But there was no proof, neither of guilt nor of innocence. There was only a poorly told narrative, repeated too many times, and that's enough to destroy a woman's reputation. At home he began to notice that I was colder, more distant. One day he hugged me and said, "Do you really think I would do that to you? That I would have the courage to get involved with that woman?" I cried. Not because I believed he had done it, but because they were making us live as if it were true. We started talking more. He asked if he should confront the neighbor. I asked him not to. I still believed that time would expose everything, and deep down, I knew that people like her, who live a lie, always drown in their own pretense. But what left me in tatters was the isolation. Friends who used to invite me for coffee now walked past me with their heads down. A couple of neighbors even changed sides when they saw me. I became the poor thing, the deceived one, the fool who doesn't realize. And to others, I was the proud one who pretended not to know. It didn't matter from the angle I was the target. I started avoiding common areas. I stopped going to the building's gym. I wouldn't go down to the party room for weeks, even when invited. And as much as I told myself I didn't care, it hurt me more than I imagined. Because it wasn't just gossip, it was an emotional massacre, a real attempt to tear me down, to make me doubt myself, my worth, my intuition. And the worst part was realizing that all of this was coming from a woman like me, someone who knew the weight of these accusations, but used them as a weapon. She wanted to defeat me. She wanted to see my marriage crumble. She wanted to take a place that was never hers, not for love, but for the pleasure of domination. There was a day when I considered leaving the building. I swear, I sat on the bed, cried for hours, and said to myself, maybe it's easier to leave than to keep proving myself every day. But then, I remembered who I was, what I had built, and most importantly, how baseless everything she said was. I knew my truth. I knew my husband's truth, and I knew that sooner or later, those who plant lies reap ruin. What I didn't know is that this would come so unexpectedly, because at the moment the neighborhood least expected it, someone pressed record and saved my dignity with just one click. Asterisk, I remember the day exactly. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, one of those muggy days where the heat clings to your body and everything seems slower. I was at home, sitting in the living room, trying to distract myself with a book, something I hadn't been able to do for weeks. My phone vibrated on the table, and the notification read, "Forwarded message, Block B residence group." This was our building's group, the one where they reported maintenance, leaks, barbecues, and Lately was where the neighbors talked about me most behind my back. I hesitated before opening it. Lately, everything there seemed like poison disguised as conversation. But instinctively, or perhaps out of exhaustion, I opened it. It was an audio file, 2 minutes and 43 seconds, no subtitles, no context, just the play button. Immediately, my heart raced. Something inside me said, "This will change everything." I pressed play, and for a second I only heard muffled sounds, voices in the background. Then, her voice, Priscilla. "Oh, friend, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I love messing with her head. She's so easy to manipulate. She gets all shaken up when she sees me. And the best part is, there's no problem. He doesn't even look at me. Can you believe it?" Silence, she continued. "But I love seeing her lose control. It makes me feel, I don't know, powerful. And the neighbors buy everything I say. It's amazing. I just say he's with me, and that's it. Everyone believes it." She became a source of pity. I just didn't expect it to be this easy. I froze. It was there, unedited, uncut, her confessing everything, saying there was never any involvement, that it was all a game, that her pleasure was psychological, watching my destruction. And what about the neighbors? They were just pawns for her little show. My eyes filled with tears, but this time, not with sadness. It was as if every word she said in that audio message returned a piece of me that had been stolen. For the first time in months, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was spoken, clear, cruel, and documented. The group exploded. Messages began to pour in. Is that really true? Did she really say that? Guys, how absurd. How can someone play with other people's marriages like that? I believed her. In less than 10 minutes, the audio had spread to other groups in the condominium. People who had never interacted with her before began messaging me to apologize. Some said they were ashamed of having believed her. Others said they never trusted her, but stayed silent for fear of getting involved. And then came the best part. The doorman called me. "Ma, single quotes, are you okay? It's just, the girl from 503 is at the door right now, screaming, saying someone leaked an audio recording of her, that it's illegal, that she's going to sue everyone. I just replied, yes, I'm fine, don't worry, I'm not going down. She's reaping what she sowed." From what I was told later, Priscilla tried to defend herself. She said the audio was old, that it had been edited. She said it was a lie, that they were trying to harm her. But no one believed her anymore. The voice was hers, the intention was clear, and the lie was undone in front of everyone. In the days that followed, Priscilla disappeared. She didn't show up for meetings. She avoided going out during rush hour, and little by little, what had been arrogance turned into silence. The provocative smile gave way to lowered glances. I, on the other hand, walked back through the building with my head held high. Not because I was avenged, but because my truth prevailed. My husband, upon hearing the audio, was shocked. He hugged me and said, "I'm so sorry for everything you went through, for doubting you, for not realizing what they were doing to us." And from that moment on, we began to rebuild everything the lie had tried to tear down. The most symbolic thing was seeing the looks on my neighbors' faces. Those who had previously judged me, who whispered, who crossed the sidewalk, were now embarrassed. Some tried to smile again, others apologized, and others simply didn't know how to look at me. But I didn't expect anything more from them. Because I've learned that not everyone who sees you sink will try to save you. Some just want to watch. And what about the person who recorded the audio? I never found out who it was, and maybe I don't even want to know. Because what matters isn't who pressed record, it's that someone had the courage to bring justice, to unmask a woman who thrived on the chaos and suffering of others. It was the most accurate shot I've ever heard, and from that moment on, the building was never the same. Neither was I. After the audio leaked, everything changed. What was once a suffocating environment, where I walked around feeling eyes fixed on my back, became a territory of awkward silence. The entire neighborhood heard it. There were no more excuses, no more rumors, no more manipulation. That recording wasn't just proof, it was a mirror. A clear reflection of who the neighbor from 503 really was, and of who I had been all along. A woman wronged, strong, and above all, truthful. Priscilla, who had previously reigned in whispers, could now barely leave the apartment. She tried to reason with some neighbors. She said the audio was taken out of context, that it was a joke between friends. But the truth is, The mask had slipped, and no one was willing to pretend they hadn't seen it anymore. Some came to apologize. Neighbors who had previously turned their backs on me began greeting me again. Some sent me private messages saying they deeply regretted having listened to her lies. A mother from the school group, who had stopped inviting me to events, took me aside and said, "I'm sorry, I was a coward. I didn't believe you when I should have, and I remained silent when I should have spoken." I didn't hold a grudge, not because it didn't hurt, but because carrying hatred after everything would be clinging to what nearly destroyed me, and I chose to move on. With my husband, we rebuilt much more than trust. We rebuilt a complicity that may have been shaken by all of this, but which grew stronger through the pain. He became more attentive, more present, more aware of how small actions of innocent ones can be misinterpreted by ill-intentioned people. "Now I understand," he told me. "She didn't just want to provoke me. She wanted to destroy you." And the curious thing is that, after the scandal, the neighborhood itself began to see Priscilla differently. What was once silent admiration or disguised envy turned to revulsion. People who hung out with her began to distance themselves. Some excluded her from their groups. Others began to insist on defending the truth, as if to make up for the time they'd allowed lies to gain ground. But do you know what my greatest victory was? It was resisting without becoming like her. At no point did I return evil with evil. I didn't scream in the hallways. I didn't confront her publicly. I just stood firm, even weak, silent, even hurt, dignified, even when they tried to smear me, because deep down, I knew the truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs patience. And when it arrives, it quiets the screams, dismantles the masks, and illuminates even the darkest corners. Today, I walk through the building with the same demeanor as always, but there's a difference. Now, no one looks at me like the betrayed wife. Now, they look at me as the woman who survived the poison of lies and prevailed without taking off her heels. Priscilla still lives there, isolated, ignored, and, according to rumors, about to move. It seems shame has overcome her. Or perhaps, finally, she's understood that living on intrigue doesn't generate respect or admiration, only fear and contempt. Am I better for it? No. But I'm stronger, more aware, more attentive. I've learned that the world is full of people willing to destroy what you build just because they can't stand to see you standing. But I've also learned that those who have truth in their hearts don't fall with the wind. And if you, woman, have ever been the victim of a lie that hurt you, that tried to tear you away from your own story, I say to you, breathe, resist, and remember, time is an ally of those who speak little and act with dignity. The neighborhood heard the audio, but it was the universe that heard my pain and returned, in the form of justice, everything that had been taken from me. If this story touched you, like it, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Have you ever been the victim of a lie like this? How did you deal with it?